Hello everyone, my name is Alice Buzovi. I'm a junior fellow of Global Research Network. GRN is hosting various events and webinars to promote meaningful discussions between leading arbitration academics and young professionals. I'm privileged and delighted to moderate today a webinar on the topic Speaking from Experience, International Opportunities for Law Students, which I'm confident will be fruitful and insightful for our audience. International arbitration is a demanding and competitive field, and we are here today to provide you with advice on how to overcome challenges while pursuing a career in international arbitration. This is why we invited our wonderful speakers who will share their insights on how to navigate this field. Our first speaker is Rishikaa. Hello, Rishikaa. Welcome to GRN.
Thank you so much. And thank you, GRN, for inviting me.
It's our pleasure. Rishikaa is an associate at Sujata Chaudhri IP Attorneys, a boutique law firm in National Capital Region of India, and is admitted to practice law in India. She completed her undergraduate law from Symbiosis International University, first rank holder. Rishikaa has done over 10 internships with top-tier law firms in India. She obtained an LL.M with a focus on intellectual property from Penn State University. While at Penn State, she was also a member of the Intellectual Property Law Clinic of the university. After completing her education, she worked with a legal technology startup company engaged in the field of international arbitration in the US before returning to India. Rishikaa is most interested in the intersection of intellectual property law and emerging technologies. Our second speaker is Nana Kurashvili. Hello, Nana. Welcome to GRN.
Hello, thank you for inviting me as well.
Our pleasure. Nana is a director of the Democratic Institutions Support Program at the Georgian Young Lawyers Association and an Oxford reporter on international law on human rights at Oxford University Press. She is a public international law specialist and holds MA, LL.M, and LLB in the fields of transitional justice, human rights, and public international law. In 2021, Nana was an associate expert in international justice at Leiden School of Law, Grotius Center for International Law Studies, with the project Inherent Powers. She has worked at various times as a researcher and as an intern at the Geneva headquarters of the International Organization for Migration and the Law Office of the International Bar Association. Nana has extensive experience in moot courts as a contestant and as well as a coach. She served as a counsel and later as a coach at Telders International Law Moot competition in 2017 and 2019. Her team received the Alona Evans Award for Excellence in Memorial Reading at the Jesup International Law Moot Court competition and advanced to the octofinals in 2018. And her team ranked fourth at the overall memorial scores at the Nuremberg Moot Court competition in 2018. Nana also co-founded the Tbilisi State University Moot Court Society, the first of its kind in Georgia. Throughout her work there, she initiated and participated in the preparation of the only publicly accessible Georgian text of the Convention on the Settlement of investment disputes between states and national of other states. Our last speaker is Dragana Nikolic. Hello, Dragana. Welcome to Chilean.
Hello, thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Dragana is a Serbian attorney at law, cooperating with Schoner. She is specialized in international arbitration and investment law. Dragana has assisted in representing companies and governments and individuals in ICSID, ICC, UNCITRAL, LCIA, SIAC, and VIAC arbitration, and has also been involved in several public international law disputes, including ICCG cases. She is currently the arbitrator intelligence ambassador and the young ICA regional representative for the Center and Eastern Europe. Dragana was previously an associate at international law firms in London and in Belgrade, and a visiting scholar at leading sets of barristers' chambers seated in London. She was also a trainee with a global law firm in Paris. Dragana holds master's degree in international law from University of Cambridge and University of Belgrade. During her study, she was a researcher at Cambridge Pro Bono Project and the Institute for Law and Finance. Her academic achievements were rewarded with numerous scholarships and awards, including the award for the best memorandum for claimant at this moot competition, and the third prize for the best memorandum for claimant at the foreign direct investment moot. Now I will turn to Rishikaa. My first question is for you. As I previously mentioned, you have completed more than 10 internships in India, and you have worked with a legal technology startup company in the United States. I would like to ask you, what are some of the key differences between being an intern in India and being involved in a startup company in the United States?
Thank you so much for that question. I think as an intern, once you start working with an organization in that position, everything is new. That's your first exposure to the real world, if I may put it that way, because you're coming from a very academic bent, and then you're trying to put all of that into practicality. However, having said that, I must mention that, the exposure, the practical exposure is very limited. It's through the associates or through the partner. They give you a task, you have to complete that. So it's not very holistic. But before I move on to AI or arbitrator intelligence, the legal tech company that I worked with, I have to mention my experience at IP Clinic, because that clinic, that program was designed in such a manner that showed us how law firms in the US work, because it was headed by a person called Professor Rachel Herder, and she had come from Wilson and Sonsini. So she said that she had programmed it in such a manner that it showed you how law firms wanted a legal person to work. And that was the stepping stone that made that, that helped me transition very smoothly into my role into, of a project manager at AI. At AI, I have to say that everything was from a very corporate perspective, naturally, because it was for a company. And my role as a lawyer was very limited. And I had to act more as a manager, where teamwork was also involved. As interns, you're not really expected to be working in teams unless the task is such. But here, everything has to be a part of, it has to come from the team. All hands have to be on deck. And this experience was more like an enhanced version of professionalism, that this is what is expected of you as a professional, be it legal or otherwise. So, yeah.
Very interesting. Very interesting comments. That leads me to my next question. Is the international IP sector a welcome environment for a graduate student? And what do you think, in your opinion, are the international opportunities or employment options for a young professional?
So I think one, it depends on how you define international. If you're looking for, to work in another country, that's one way of looking at international. Other thing, that's something that I'm doing here in India, is I'm dealing with a lot of international clients. So your perspective sort of changes when you're dealing with international clients as well as national clients. As far as international opportunities for a recent graduate is concerned, if you're talking about the US, yes, there are avenues where you can enter the legal industry, but they are limited because of immigration issues. However, interestingly, immigration law is one of the most lucrative ways of getting into the system. So if you want to build a career in immigration law in the US, you have it. I mean, you'll get ample opportunities to become a part of that sector. Other than that, of course, is international arbitration. That's, again, a very welcoming field. One thing, a recent development that I've seen lately is in the field of emerging technologies, because now everything is heading towards technology, and technology is getting involved in various facets of every sector. So there is a lot of demand in that sector as well. So I feel, yes, there are a lot of opportunities. It depends on, I think, you and a little bit of luck on how you get that opportunity.
And probably depends on how you portray yourself in.
Precisely, yes.
Okay, in, so to say, 5 years, that will be like your guidance to know where you want to go, and for that to start to build up your.
Precisely. Because it's at times, especially after 1 year of LLM, it's very difficult for you to understand where is it that you want to go. So it has to come from you. It has to come from your individual choices. If your purpose is just to stay in one country, then you'll find your ways. But if your purpose is to find what you really want to do, then the world is your oyster. You can go anywhere and do anything that you really want to do and thrive.
I agree with you. I also believe that for following your passion is the best GPS to to your success.
Absolutely, very well said.
Yeah, you mentioned emerging technologies. So I want to ask you, how important do you believe is for someone aspiring to become an IP expert, so to say, to develop an expertise in emerging technologies, and what would be the best advice you can give to them? What is your opinion on this?
Okay. I think the rate at which all these technologies are developing throughout the world, I think it's got a really good role to play in it. And IP and its intersection, for example, with NFTs or metaverse, as the case may be, is becoming bigger and bigger. So my advice is something that I'll come to first, and that is that if you really want to get into the system, if you really are interested in these technologies and you want to start, then start now. For two reasons. One is for a personal reason, which is that it'll give you that competitive edge. I feel that at the end of the day, every field, every law will eventually get involved with technologies at some point or the other. And depending, of course, on the jurisdictions and how easily and how quickly they adopt and adapt within these changing environments. So if you want that competitive edge, then you must start now. Other thing is, which I think is a very important at a philosophical level, is that because everything is starting now, you will be if you start now and you get involved at this stage, you will get an exposure when the foundation is being laid for all the laws involving technology, be it fintech or otherwise. So if you want to participate and see that this is where it began and this is where it has come to now, let's say 5 years down the line, then you will have to start now.
Yeah, we'll have to start now, definitely, because it's a new world emerging. We'll have to adapt to it sooner or later. That's, and I think for all of us.
Yes, and COVID was a great teacher in this aspect.
Yes. Thank you very much, Rishika, for your comments and for your suggestions. I think they're very helpful for our viewers. I turn now to Nana. What are the most useful lessons you have learned from being an intern and a researcher in international law and human rights? How have this experience added in your career?
Thank you again for inviting me and also for
It's our
the
pleasure.
question. It has been, well, my profession as an international law specialist is kind of actually broad. And I specifically specialize, as you mentioned, in transitional justice, human rights, rule of law. Also, it has some conjecture with international humanitarian law and criminal law. And actually, I have been always kind of at first, in the beginning of my career, since I've been interested in a lot of dimensions of international law. For me, it was a little bit, I was subject to my own criticism because how can I be interested in so many topics? I need to go in a very specific dimension. But I think all of this interest have led to me to transitional justice and to rule of law and to democratization processes in my own country. And being an intern and researcher and doing all these new and different activities has led me to actually appreciate the interest that I had in many different dimensions of public international law. Because if I didn't intern, for example, for the International Organization for Migration in the direction of migration law and refugee law, or maybe I shifted my focus towards more human rights and kind of torture or human rights protection direction in the IBA of Human Rights Association, if I haven't done that, I wouldn't have kind of the expertise and interest in kind of different and more deeper dimensions of the justice system or the democratization process in countries. And finally, at the end, these experiences have led to my job that I'm doing. And actually, I agree with Rishikaa here. It depends on what you call international, because I have been in international organizations. I have interned there. I had many job offers from UN and specialized agencies of the UN. However, I decided to stick to the NGO that I'm at. Is one of the biggest and largest and oldest NGOs in Georgia currently, working on human rights and democracy. Because right now I am the head of the program that is actually involved in democratization process, that is actually involved dealing with these kind of like different dimensions of law. And I have to be head of 5 different fields of law and democratic processes. And I think this is very logical. And it is very good that in the beginning of my being a student and my education, I started to go after different kinds of internships and different kinds of research opportunities. So I would encourage anyone who thinks that they are interested in migration or they are interested in commercial law to just go after whatever you are interested in right now, because at the end, it is just going to come together in a very logical way, just as it became for me. So yeah.
So in your opinion, experiencing more opportunities is a way of figuring out what you really like and what you're passionate about and what you see yourself,
Exactly.
what is
Yeah.
best for you. That's a great advice. And
exactly. Yeah.
definitely, it's a great advice. Thank you. My next question for me is, as I mentioned in the presentation, you have extensive experience in moot courts. So I want to ask you, how would you compare your experience in as a team member and as a coach in moot competitions?
Well, it is actually a very good question. I believe that, well, I've done, as you mentioned, many international moot court competitions and national moot court competitions as a participant, coach, or advisor to the team. And they have different perspectives and different avenues and how to approach it. I believe that you can be a coach to the team without being a participant. However, it is always good to have that inner knowledge. I mean, of course, you can do anything if you put your mind to, but when you are a first participant and know you have suffered through all of those late nights and and all of those late nights, and you have, fought with your co-agents on legal issues, and ups and downs of being a participant. Being a coach then makes you more empathetic, sympathetic to what your teammates are going through, and it kind of gives you the knowledge of behind the scene knowledge. So I think that is the difference. Of course, being a participant, if right now I had a choice of being a participant in moot court competition or a coach, I would probably choose to be a participant, because I remember and I miss the research process. I miss the memorial drafting process. I miss how you argue with your colleagues about really important topics. Of course, right now I do the same, but right now I am in a management position. So I do really miss the research phase. I have, with Oxford University Press, I do have some research, not some, but a lot of research responsibilities. I write analysis of the important international cases. So I do get that. I do get those, I already have the experience. I actually have continuing experience with research, but I still do miss the moot courts dilemmas, because it is so different. Because, for example, I had to deal with diplomatic law, or I had to deal with law of the sea. That is not what I do, actually, and it is not what I would think to be interested in the long run in my career. So I think having access to all of these different fields of law, and actually having not a choice, but you have to do it. You have to research in order to be good, in order to be skilled, and in order to win a trial. I think it is very satisfactory feeling. And of course, at the end, as a coach, I did lead my team towards a lot of victories. And it was, of course, I was very happy for the wins that we got. And yes, it is a group effort. If you lose as a team, you lose, of course, the coach as well. And if you win as a team. However, it is absolutely different feeling when you win and you're the one arguing the case. So I think, definitely being a coach. Also, I talked about being what it's like to be a participant and its ups and downs, but being a coach is very responsible position, is full of responsibility. And anyone who wants to pursue being a coach, I think they should. If they have been a participant, also even more, because it is a very rewarding feeling when you kind of like transfer your experience and your knowledge to a new generation of law students, and you see them thrive. And at the end, even if you lose or win, you just see how far they've come. And as a coach, I always do this. First, when we start the oral round practice, I record them, I record their voices and the video and everything, and I keep it to myself. And we kind of do the same thing at the end. And I show them how far they've come in their speech, in their mimics and skills of how to perform. So I think this is very visual representation of how far a person can come with your help. So I think it is a very rewarding experience, and everyone should go for being a participant or a coach in moot court competitions.
Just to emphasize what you say, I also agree that usually challenges are the best teachers, and put yourself in a difficult situation is a great opportunity when you can learn and you can add to your experience. And as you said, you can build then your experience as a coach. You can build it on your experience as a participant, and so on. So it's a great way of seeing developing. And my next question is, what are the key skills to compete in these competitions, in these events?
For participants to have, right? As a moot court.
For participants to have, or
as a counsel.
Yeah.
Well, first, I think the common misconception a lot of universities have, and even my university had that the student has to have certain speech skill in speech, delivering speech or eye contact, for example, to, of course, to participate and to be picked and chosen to be a part of the team in a moot court competition. Of course, it helps. It helps a lot if you're already skilled and you're already experienced. But I think I would encourage everyone to without an experience, of course, in a moot court, you start from somewhere, right? So you go for it, and I think a lot of effort comes from a coach and university itself to give you those skills that you're required to have. However, even if someone is already a participant, is going to be and is planning to applying to be a participant in moot court competition, I think the most important skills are, we can divide them in two parts. The skills that you have for yourself on your own preparation stage as a participant in moot court competitions, but the other one is communication skills, the skills that somebody else sees when you're performing. The first one is something very difficult to acquire, not acquire, but to train yourself is being a hard worker, not to be lazy sometimes. You just have to push yourself to constantly research. And I had this test in my head that if I decided at some point in my research that, oh, you know what, this sentence already says something that I want to, say, and then some little voice would just speak to me, but what about this? And then the other voice would say, it's fine, nobody's gonna care. The moment I had this conversation with myself, I knew that I had to work harder to go into that. Right in that moment, I was trying to be lazy and not work more. And I was trying to find a shortcut. So I think having a skill of overcoming the need and the urge to find a shortcut is kind of a very big skill to have, especially in the moot court competitions, because the longer you dig into research when it comes to a legal point that you have in a memorial or in a case, the deeper you go, and lazier your mind gets, because you want it to be over soon. But at the end, it just pays off. So I would just tell anyone to just stick to being a hard worker and try not to fall for the lazy talk in your head whenever it comes out during the research period. As for the other half of the moot court competitions, that is very important, the communications and everything else. For example, myself, I learned and acquired these skills during the moot court competitions. And I would catch myself, and I had a good coach that taught me how to keep eye contact towards every judge during the trial, or how to be more assertive, and how to be very respectable to the judges and to the panel. So I think all of these skills can be acquired. I think one skill overall to have before entering the system and before entering this dimension of moot courts is to be open-minded, and is to follow the road and trust the roadmap that the coach has given you. Of course, with this, I'm saying that you have a good coach. And at first, we have this presumption that the team has a good coach. Well, if not, I would just outline several skills very shortly to have in the moot courts, and is very appreciated during this time of the public speaking. That is slow speaking. You need to speak slow because a lot of judges cannot follow the speech. So they need to find out what they need to ask question on, because when someone is just speaking very fast, it is not comfortable for them to ask questions. That's first. The second one is the eye contact. It is very important not to look into your notes and to know the speech by your heart, and to have very piercing eye contact with the judges, because it gives you more confidence and you're more assertive, and they know and they think that you know what you're talking about. So it is very important to have that as well. And then this body language stuff, the handshaking, and not to have hands all over and stuff like that. One more thing I would advise everyone to have, and it's kind of a team skill, is that to have very close relations to your co-agent, because it is very important as a team to be seen as a team by the judges, because this is also something that in every moot court competition, be that commercial law or human rights law or international law, they value and evaluate how you communicate with your team member. So to have a team spirit. So I think this is a very important thing to be, of course, focused on during this competition.
Yeah, very interesting. Definitely curiosity and team skills are very important. But what about legal skills? What do you say about legal skills?
Well, with regards to legal skills, I think every law school, of course, kind of gives you the opportunity to work on them. As a student and moot court competitor in this project, you kind of develop research skills. As I mentioned, you kind of more you research, you go deeper into the issue, and you see how much there is. And also there's one skill that you have to have, and one thing that you have to remember during this research, that you need to stop yourself sometimes before digging deeper, because sometimes it is enough. And sometimes I myself went crazy with the research. So I think this is also part of the research skill, to know when to stop, know when you have enough information for your cause, because legal issues can be very broad and you need to be time efficient when you research. So I think this is one of the sub skills to have with the research. The second one is analysis. You learn how to analyze the issue from different angles. I think it is the moot court competitions taught me how the legal brief should be structured. For example, the rule, the issue, the analysis, and the conclusion. Or there's also different tactics of how you rearrange and how logically it sounds for the reader. And I think this was one of the legal skills that I acquired from moot court competitions that I didn't get from law school, unfortunately. I acquired this skill faster than I did, during my three-year experience in law school, because right now I was working with people like very closely, and they were evaluating my work with the analysis. So I knew how to write legal analysis from very close interactions. So I think moot court competitions also give you that insight. With regards to identification of the legal issue, well, I think moot court competitions give you this unique opportunity with the case law, because it's a moot court, right? It's a hypothetical question. So when you read the case, I actually learned how to disaggregate data in the case, because this is how logic works. Whenever a moot court competition starts and you get a case, they have a lot of irrelevant data in the case. There's like 20 pages of the hypothetical, and then you have to kind of pick and choose what is important for your case. And I think it is a very important legal skill as a lawyer to have, because you learn what information is important for your legal argument. And with the moot court competitions, I learned how to, get rid of the irrelevant data and just stay with what was important. And yeah, funnily, from 20 pages, I usually got 2 pages left from the facts that I could use for my own argument. So I think it is a very useful skill that a lawyer can have.
Yes, and a very useful experience. And actually, what you learn in a moot competition, you will use, your whole career. And it's about learning details. It's about legal analysis. It's about legal skills. It's about everything you will use as a lawyer, or as an attorney at law, or as a judge,
It just
or is the
it
same?
sets you up for a future career. And I realized when I was, even right now, when I speak to a whole room, I look at every single person. And I know that I have this skill from the moot court competition. I wouldn't otherwise do that. And everyone in the room suddenly feels very noticed by me when I speak, and they are on alert and they are listening to me. And I know this because I look at them, each and every one of them, even someone who talks, I look at them and I know, and I think a lot of people are ashamed of looking people in the eyes when they are speaking or talking. And the moot court competitions actually made me overcome this fear of looking someone in the eye when I'm speaking. So I think, yeah, it really helps me right now in my career. And I do have experiences, as Rishikaa mentioned. For example, you work in the international community somewhere else, but I work in Georgia, but with international community. I have a lot of international partners, and we meet political parties, and we have very tight connection to this whole democracy processes in Georgia. So I need these skills every single day, and I'm very glad that I acquired this when I was a student. And I'm glad that I don't have to start to learn all this stuff right now when I'm actually doing my work.
Yes, and the skills will you use them a lot in court pleadings. It's actually the same. And
Yeah.
we are talking exactly about the same issues. You'll do this all the day, long, every day in courts.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same.
Yep.
And then my last question for you. You are a co-founder of Tbilisi State University's Moot Court Society. What are your thoughts on the role of Moot Alumni Association in defining a legal professional's career?
Well, I think founding Moot Court Society was one of the best decisions that we made as students. I founded it with my JSUP colleagues, and we decided that there was a need of such association in Georgia, since there was no such thing before that, and we needed to unite students and let them know that you don't need a university call or university application system to be and end up in moot court. It is a very open system, because when I was a second year student, my university would only handpick people from the seminars or lectures, and it was horrible, because I thought that only people who sat in the front rows of the seminar and who were friends with the professors were getting picked. And there was only one opportunity when there was an open call, and right now there's actually continuous open calls at universities, fortunately. But before that, it wasn't, and we decided to create a space where we would share our skills, have trainings, do a lot of academic different projects on different topics, and we would also have connections with other international associations like ours. And some of our plans, of course, worked, some of ours didn't, because of how we were also in the stage of our lives that we needed to develop, and some of us left the country to study and so on and so forth. But I think right now also our university has the system of uniting moot court competitors. And I think it is very important to have such societies in universities, or in every university, or especially at least one in the country, because it just creates the community spirit. It creates the system and the space for academic work, and also it just creates the space for alumni like myself to reminisce and to continue being connected to the moot court system, and kind of transfer your knowledge to the future generation, which for myself, I was not fortunate enough to have someone like that to give me their knowledge And I had to learn with my colleagues, alongside my colleagues, I had to learn all this stuff along the way myself. So I think to imagine to have someone, a mentor in this regard, in your country or a different country in this field, it is a blessing. So yeah, having this kind of societies actually really do help students and lead them towards success and lifelong experiences. So yeah, I think it is very useful.
Yeah, it's time saving. I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
time saving and great initiative. It's wonderful. Great project. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nana, for all your comments. I move to Dragana. Like Nana, you have been very successful in moot competitions. Do you think that being awarding for legal writing in English helped you to decide to pursue an international career in arbitration?
Well, being able to participate in different moot courts, that I had a chance not only internationally but also domestically, I think it was definitely the best learning experience I had during my both undergrad and graduate studies. And I think it's a wonderful chance to improve your presentation skills, your negotiation skills, and of course your drafting skills. I would also add that it was crucial for me to understand the importance of the teamwork, not only when drafting the long submissions, but also when helping each other. And I think that's very important if you want to last as an associate in international arbitration, because you often have filings and deadlines, and it's very important to be able to rely on your colleagues when drafting submissions, etc. For me personally, if nothing else, being able to draft memos early in my career in moots, it helped me to get introduced to the concept of all-nighters and filing weeks quite early in my life, which is definitely something that you want to go through, in a hypothetical environment when you don't have your colleagues and when you don't have your clients and you're not under pressure, so you can mess up a lot. You can just be shot away from your faculty, but that's the worst that can happen to you. But I mean, yes, in general, drafting memos were super important for me, and it helped me in my career, because I think international arbitration is specific, because you usually participate in huge proceedings, and then you draft submissions which are consisting of hundreds of pages, and basically you each time draft a different short book, and you have hundreds of footnotes, hundreds of exhibits, and so on. And it's not the legal knowledge and legal analysis, it's very important, but what I also learned through my moot drafting experiences is that creativity is equally important, because as I mentioned, you basically draft a book and you want to send a message to your readers, and your reader is the arbitrator, and you want to persuade them that what you write is actually how they should decide in the end. And if I may share a tip that I use
Yes, please.
to enhance my drafting skills, although it's not direct answer to your question, but whenever I had time, I would read all kind of different writing pieces. I would mix poetry and financial reports and the classic literature and the modern literature and reading newspapers, and I think it really helped me to understand the force of words and how it's important to build your own writing and drafting styles. And then later on, when you sit and you need to write hundreds of pages, then whatever you read, it's somewhere in your memory and in your brain, and you never know when you can use something that you read before. And I think that's, at least for me, it's working. And I think it's definitely something which bring an additional quality to your submissions, or even like the short essays, or even just the research memos.
Yes, and definitely. The mental training is actually very important. And if you can develop, I agree with you, and I think this is a very important tip to underline. Um, Try to learn different kind of writing styles, just to switch hats.
Yes.
It's perfect for your mental training, because it's not only about law or knowing law, or it's more broader than knowing law, or you need to develop a lot of
Yes.
other skills,
Yes,
definitely.
definitely. And I think additional value would be that for each arbitration case, you have the different factual metrics, and you never know what's the next case coming. Sometimes it's a water plant, sometimes it's the car factory, sometimes it's something completely different. And as you learn and read about more different things, then it's easier for you to understand the facts of your cases, even if you have only a broad language, broad knowledge and sense of what's the case about.
Yes, because a broad knowledge can help you actually see the details of the
Yes.
case and be more focused on what's important, or not to miss a detail, or not to miss something forbidden.
Yes, I agree.
I have another question for you, Dragana. What do you think are the most important steps for a graduate to take to, if they want to enter this field of arbitration? We talk about moot competitions. We talk about different skills. What would you like to add to what we've discussed?
Well, I think in my experience, the field of international arbitration itself, as I see it, is on one side, it's very attractive and very promising and may really help you build an excellent career. But on the other side, it's very competitive, because when you try to enter into the field, you're not competing only against your colleagues from your faculty or from your region or from your country, but basically from the whole world. And
Yes.
as soon as you start building your profile, it's better for you. As we already talked, moot courts are definitely great experience and a good way for you to not only to develop all kind of your skills, but also to get introduced with the textbooks, case laws, most important practitioners, jurisdictions, etc. I would also add trying to write essays or blogs and try to publish them online. I think it's also very important, because later on you especially at the beginning of your careers, you would need to do a lot of legal research, and it's always good to to train that in advance when not under the pressure and when you want to write about topics that you like. And also it's super useful. You never know who can refer or quote your early works, and it's always very satisfying to know that you've been quoted. I would also add, for me, I really enjoy trying to make connections by being active in different arbitration related organizations. If nothing else, it helps you exchange your knowledge and views and experience with people from other jurisdictions. And it's always nice to be to know what's happening in the field and where and how you can develop further. And I think there's a plenty of really well organized organizations now that you can try to involve more, and they also have lots of training opportunities and webinars, etc., that you can always use for furthering your legal knowledge in the field of international arbitration. And also internships are quite important, at least for me. I had a chance, to have internships in a few countries: Bosnia, France, United Kingdom, and Serbia. And I really enjoyed in the experience, because it's really, you know, help you to see whether this is something that you really want to work on or not. And it's way different than your studies, and it's always good, you know, to test yourself before finally deciding that this is what I want to do in the future for the rest of my life. And I would also, so another tip that I would like to share is that I think for someone who wants to pursue international arbitration, I think it would be helpful for everyone that before, you know, going into the field to practice at least an hour or two in your domestic jurisdiction. I think that's quite important. So you can, you know, introduce yourself with how the law works in your own jurisdiction. What are the proceedings? What's the concept? Whether it's a civil law or common law, how that functions. Because first you will at some point definitely use it in international arbitration, but on the other side, there's a lot of similarities between the practicing in domestic jurisdictions and practicing international law. And I think this is always something that's well regarded by senior lawyers in any law firm.
Yes, I agree. And as Nana said, this maybe practicing law in your own jurisdiction for a year or two is just a great opportunity to see if you really like what you're doing or not, or perhaps you like to choose something you haven't something to compare. So yeah. Just to echo what you said, Dragana, I think also networking is very important. Building a network is very important in international arbitration if you want to pursue a career in this field. So let me ask you, once you enter the field of arbitration, what do you think might be the challenges? Or if I may ask you, what challenges did you face, or what can you tell us about this?
Well, as I already mentioned, I think like the field of international arbitration is very competitive. On the one side, it's you're competing with your colleagues from the rest of the world, but on the other side, you know, there's a limited number of law firms practicing international arbitration. For example, in my domestic jurisdiction, there's only a few of them, and it's very limited, let's say, market. And on the other side, there's also a limited number of huge international arbitration cases, which then implies that sometimes, you know, your academic success or your experience is not the key and the advantage that you have, but sometimes it's more important to know a certain language or that you have the certain background, and that in this way you can, you know, contribute to the team. So I think it's always good whenever you can, probably, you know, to study the language that you think it may be useful for you in future, or and also, like, you know, to try to practice in different jurisdictions, at least only as an intern, so you can figure out what kind of background is attractive in what jurisdiction, because this differs from one country to another country. And I think what is also important to have in mind, at least from my personal experience, is to have a plan in advance, which bar qualification you want to have, when you want to go to study for your bar exam, and how you want to obtain it, whether you want to, you know, obtain it in your domestic jurisdiction, or perhaps you can choose the different path by, you know, going to another country, doing the LL.M, and then having a bar qualification somewhere else. I think this is something that needs to be really, you know, think through early in your career. And basically, you know, when you practice international arbitration, it's not crucial for your skills, whether you're qualified or not. You still can participate in the cases, but one advice that I got from the ICJ judge was basically you need to get qualified as soon as possible. So I would just share this message with everyone else who wants to practice international arbitration.
Yeah, you should be qualified somewhere. I agree with you. It's about being a lawyer, an attorney at law, of course. Thank you very much, Dragana. Thank you for all your comments and all your suggestions. I have a last question for all of you. Would you like to share with us a funny situation or funny moment or an anecdote from your career with us or with our audience?
I think one thing that I found very weird when I did it in my law school was taking a psychometric test in the final year. But eventually it came in very handy because it informed me about myself as to what kind of a learner I am and what kind of a worker I am. So I am more of the organized, people and not so creative. But I think it came in handy when I started working with people because I knew what I lacked and what I needed from my teammates to sort of, bring in and complete that entire picture for me. So, and even now it has come in handy because I had a discussion with one of my seniors at the law firm that, if you can just explain me certain things in this manner and not just, give it to me on a piece of paper, then perhaps it'll help me understand why we're doing whatever we're doing. And that will help me acquire the skill more quickly than you perhaps want me to acquire that skill. So I think it all begins with yourself. So you need to really, really understand who you are. And if it takes you to, take a psychometric test, then so be it.
It might be fun. Thank you.
I think I can go next. I have,
Yes,
well, the story that I kind of remembered is also about skills, about thinking on your feet very fast, and kind of crosses over with my moot court experience that I've had with Jessup International Law Moot Court competition. So I was competing in 2018, and we were we qualified for an international round, so we went to Washington DC. And I remember I had this horrible jet lag, and the next we had I didn't sleep well as well when I went to the hotel. And when suddenly we decided to, not suddenly, but when we got our schedules and when I went to the courtroom, well, and one thing I noticed, I do travel back and forth. I studied in US, so I do know some very particular thing that is different from Georgia, for example, that when they serve water with a lot of ice. And in Georgia, we don't do that. We ask you, like, do you want water with ice or cold water or tap water? With them, you just had a lot, like these buckets of water in front of you on every table, and it had a lot of ice in them. And I remember it was my time to get to the podium. I was very sleepy. I was very confused. I barely remember what I talked about there and what I said in front of the judges. And of course, I poured down the water with a lot of ice, and I brought it with me to the podium because that's one of the things also when you speak to the judge and when they ask a question, this is your chance to drink water. So I always take water with me and put it there so that when I speak and when the judge is asking a question, I drink water, I'm fine. And suddenly when I did that, I also, I didn't drink water. I actually got like 3 of the big chunks of ice in my mouth. So the question was very short. So I had to chew down ice very, very fast before the judge would finish the question. And that sounds that the ice makes when you are chewing it and crushing it down with your teeth. So the whole courtroom was very silent. The judge was asking a question very professionally, and suddenly I was standing there chewing down the ice and kind of having this crushing sounds throughout the whole courtroom. And I got a brain freeze. I was in a horrible shape, and everyone was holding back gloves because only thing they were hearing nobody was listening to the question. The only sound that was in the room was me chewing the ice. So yeah, that was a horrible experience for me, because I didn't think that I would get like, that would be the point where I would just fall apart in front of the judges. But somehow my teeth saved me, and I kind of got the point from the judge, and everything went well. But I think it also broke, pun intended, it also broke ice a little bit in the room. So yeah, so it was a funny experience that I can remember from my moot court days.
Thank you very much. Very funny.
I'm
Yeah,
sure he must have felt like a rapper because you were giving him the beats.
Yeah,
probably they thought they have a mouse in the courts, a little mouse in the courts, chewing ice. Yes, thank you. What about you, Dragana? Do you have a funny moment you'd like to share with us?
Well, it's not a funny moment, but I think it's a positive story.
Okay.
Basically,
Okay.
I grew up in a war-torn country, and naturally, you know, that affected my childhood and the lives of millions in the region. So that's basically my main motivation why I wanted to try to get engaged in the international law, to try to, you know, avoid any kind of conflicts peacefully. So suddenly, early on in my career, I had an opportunity to work on high-profile border disputes and other public international law cases, including the ICJ cases. And I mean, I didn't have a huge impact then, but that was really rewarding and fulfilling experience. And it's really, I always use it, you know, as a reminder that everything is possible, you know, when even you believe in yourself and basically in the path that you've chosen to follow.
Yeah, thank you. Life is tricky sometimes.
Definitely full of surprises.
Okay. Thank you everyone for taking time to participate in our webinar. And thank you for this interesting discussion. I hope I will see you soon in our next coming events. I also want to thank you, my colleagues and my friends from GRN. And my special thanks goes to Mirita for her efforts and for being valuable assistant in organizing this event. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alice, for moderating this event and, you know, making it so engaging for everyone, I feel. And of course, a huge thanks to our speakers. You know, I've been listening and you really made this discussion stand out for me with your eloquence and of course your knowledge. And I think in the end, it was your passion for sharing your precious experience. So that's what the GRN is all about. And, you know, we were just lucky to have you, really. Thank you.
Thank you.